I am Natasha Volkov, 30 years old, and I grew up in a penthouse overlooking the Moscow River, where the Kremlin's golden domes glittered like promises and winter lasted half the year in more ways than one. To outsiders, my family embodied new Russian success and tradition combined. My father, Mikhail Volkov, built an empire importing luxury goods after the Soviet collapse, his warehouses full of Italian furniture and German cars. My mother, Irina, ran charity galas that were more about networking than philanthropy, her smile as carefully maintained as her Botox. But behind those bulletproof windows and Italian marble floors, our home felt more like a fortress protecting prejudices than a family preserving culture. I used to stand on our balcony, watching the city lights blur through snow, planning my escape from their suffocating expectations. Even as a teenager, I knew their love came with conditions written in invisible ink. My family weren't just traditional. They were choreographers of a life I never auditioned for. I still remember my 21st birthday perfectly, sitting in our dining room while my parents discussed my future marriage prospects with family friends, only to receive a text from my brother Alexei. "Happy birthday, little sister. Try to smile while they auction you off." The diamond necklace they gifted me felt like a collar. They never asked what I wanted. They only talked about suitable matches. Marry a Russian businessman's son, someone orthodox, someone who'd expand their network. The rest of their energy went to business deals, vodka toasts with oligarch friends, or maintaining their image at the Bolshoi Theater. I can't recall my father ever asking about my dreams, or my mother seeing beyond my marriageability. They had their mantras. Volkov women marry strategically, or your grandfather survived Stalin. You can survive an arranged marriage. Over time, I learned to hide my true self and stop expecting them to love me unconditionally. The only place I felt free was Moscow State University, where I studied international business against their wishes. They preferred something more decorative like art history. But it was there, in an economics seminar, that my world shifted. His name was David Okafor, and he was everything my parents feared. Nigerian, brilliant, pursuing his PhD in renewable energy systems. His laugh filled rooms, his insights challenged professors, and his smile made Moscow winters feel less endless. We were partnered for a project on emerging markets, spending late nights in the library debating everything from Pushkin to petroleum alternatives. "You argue like a Russian but dream like an African," he told me once, his accent making poetry of simple observations. "Maybe that's why I don't fit anywhere perfectly," I replied. "Perfect is overrated," he said. "Interesting lasts longer." We fell in love between spreadsheets and coffee runs, building something real while Moscow slept under snow. David showed me his Moscow, African restaurants in Kategorod, international student gatherings where skin color mattered less than ideas, a city more diverse than my parents acknowledged existed. For 6 months, we kept it secret. I'd tell my parents I was studying while David and I explored Gorky Park, shared blinis at hidden cafes, planned futures that included solar panels in Lagos and sustainable development across continents. He made me believe the world was bigger than Moscow's elite circles, that love could cross more than just rivers. The revelation came accidentally. My mother arrived early to pick me up from university, finding me in the courtyard kissing David goodbye. The look on her face, horror mixed with rage, told me everything about the conversation to come. She said nothing until we were home, then summoned my father from his office. They sat across from me like prosecutors, the family portrait behind them mocking with its unified smiles. "That person," my mother began, unable to say his name. "How long?" "His name is David." 6 months. "I love him." My father's fist hit the table. "Love? You think this is love? A Volkov daughter with an African? Do you understand what you're doing to our reputation?" "I'm living my life," I said quietly. "Your life belongs to this family," he roared. "End it. Tomorrow. Or you're no longer our daughter."
І що з Давід?
Packed my belongings while my mother cried about grandchildren who'd never look properly Russian, while my father calculated the social damage. Alexei watched from his doorway, too cowardly to defend me, but slipping me an envelope of cash with a whispered, "Be careful." I moved into David's small apartment near the university, learning to cook Nigerian stew on a Soviet-era stove, studying by candlelight when the electricity failed, rich in ways my parents' money never made me feel. We were building something together, my business acumen and his technical genius creating a renewable energy startup focused on bringing sustainable power to remote regions. "Your family will come around," David would say, optimistically. "When they do, We'll welcome them. But months turned to years. My parents erased me from family photos, changed locks, told society friends I was studying abroad indefinitely. The Volkov name, once my burden, became my ghost. We married in a small ceremony with David's fellow Nigerian students and a few brave Russian friends as witnesses. Built our company, SolarBridge, from nothing but determination and innovation. David's designs were revolutionary, solar systems that could withstand Siberian winters and African heat alike. I handled the business side, using every connection I'd made before my exile. We struggled, survived on instant noodles and dreams, celebrated tiny victories in our cramped kitchen. Then David got the call that changed everything. The Nigerian government wanted to partner with SolarBridge for rural electrification. The contract was worth millions, but we needed significant capital investment and established infrastructure. We were so close to transforming lives but lacked the resources to scale. That's when I learned about my father's crisis. Volkov Luxury Imports was hemorrhaging money. The sanctions had hit hard, European suppliers were pulling out, and their traditional business model was dying. A contact from my old life whispered they were weeks from bankruptcy, that my father's pride was finally cracking against reality. Alexei had tried to help but lacked the innovation to pivot. They needed a miracle or a merger. I had David draw up a proposal. SolarBridge would partner with Volkov Imports, converting their warehouses into solar panel assembly plants, using their distribution networks for renewable energy systems. The dying luxury business would transform into future technology. The numbers were perfect. The irony was delicious. The African son-in-law they'd rejected would save the Russian empire they'd protected from him. The meeting was arranged through intermediaries. I walked into my father's office for the first time in 3 years, David beside me in a perfectly tailored suit, both of us radiating the success they'd tried to prevent. My parents sat rigid behind the desk, aged by more than time, their empire's decay visible in every worried line. Natasha, my mother whispered. Mrs. Okafor, I corrected. We're here to discuss business. David presented with the brilliance that had first captured me. Showed how SolarBridge technology could revitalize their infrastructure, how renewable energy was Russia's future beyond oil, how our African partnerships opened markets they'd never imagined. My father's eyes darted between the profitable projections and his daughter's wedding ring. The terms, he asked hoarsely. Partnership requires full acceptance, I said calmly. David becomes family, publicly and privately. Our children, your grandchildren, will carry both names, Okafor Volkov. And SolarBridge maintains 51% control. That's, my mother started. Non-negotiable, David interrupted gently. We're offering salvation, not charity. Your daughter built this company while you built walls. Now those walls are crushing you. They signed. What choice did they have? Pride tastes bitter when served with bankruptcy papers. The announcement made headlines. Volkov Empire pivots to renewable energy through African partnership. Photos showed our families together, my parents forcing smiles while shaking David's hand, Moscow's elite witnessing their prejudice bow to profit. But the real victory came later. The first solar panel rolled off the assembly line with SolarBridge Volkov, stamped proudly, heading to light up a village in Nigeria. My father stood watching, and I saw something shift in his eyes. He's brilliant, he admitted quietly. David. His designs, they're art. He always was, I replied. You just couldn't see past his skin. I was protecting your prejudice.
Not me.
Never me. The business thrived beyond projections. David's innovations and my strategies, combined with Volkov infrastructure, created an unstoppable force. We expanded across Eastern Europe, into Africa, bridging continents literally and figuratively. Moscow's elite, forced to work with David to access our technology, discovered what I'd always known. Brilliance has no color, and love recognizes no borders. My mother started visiting, tentatively at first, bringing traditional Russian dishes to our new apartment. She'd watched David work, his hands creating solutions to problems she was only beginning to understand existed. I was wrong, she told me one evening, holding our daughter, whose beautiful face reflected both heritages. We almost lost everything that mattered for things that never did. Today, SolarBridge Volkov is Russia's leading renewable energy company. David lectures at Moscow State University, inspiring the next generation. I run the business operations from our headquarters in the same building where my father once imported Italian marble. Now, we export sustainable futures. The walls are covered with photos from our projects. Russian villages getting electricity for the first time, African communities powered by Siberian assembled panels, the world made smaller by shared light. My parents are regular visitors now, my father discussing engineering with David late into the night, my mother teaching our children Russian lullabies. They've learned what I always knew, that families aren't weakened by difference but strengthened by it. You saved us, my father said recently, watching our son play with a miniature solar panel David had made him.
No, incorrecte.
David saved your business. I saved our family by choosing love over your fears. And if we'd succeeded in separating you, then you'd be bankrupt in more ways than one. He nodded, understanding finally that some losses are victories in disguise. I am Natasha Okafor-Volkov. They disowned me for loving an African man who didn't fit their narrow vision of suitable. Now that same man powers their empire, fills their grandchildren with laughter in 2 languages, and proves daily that the future belongs to those who build bridges, not walls. My parents raised me to marry strategically. I did. I married the man who'd one day save everything they'd built while teaching them what they'd almost destroyed. Love is the ultimate long-term investment. It pays dividends in ways spreadsheets can't calculate and saves more than just businesses. Sometimes it saves souls. And sometimes, if you're lucky, it saves the very people who tried to stop it. That's the kind of return on investment even Moscow's shrewdest oligarchs have to respect.